it's a question I get asked quite a lot. What's it like being a woman in theatre? How did you progress through your career? And I've never really been able to answer it. There's also lots of questions that I get about, has it been a disadvantage being a woman working in theatre? And to what extent is that true? And I've always struggled to answer that as well. And how I would answer that on behalf of anyone else that I work with. So it seemed to me like a really fascinating way of actually trying to hone down where we are as an industry. And I sort of felt that I could do a kind of fairly practical response to that. So it seemed like a study that we could actually make a useful contribution to, and it didn't seem too difficult. It didn't seem to be asking like such a massive question that I couldn't answer, which I think, how do you feel as a woman working in theatre? I don't know. I have no idea how I feel, and is it different to anyone else? I don't know. But this was much more, it was asking a big question, but in lots of separate ways that I felt I could make a contribution towards. I don't know, what do you think?
I think it's interesting because obviously it's a changing situation, and I'm in the position where I've only ever worked for women in theatre. I worked for Josie Rourke at the Bush, and now I work with Rachel. And every time, and I see women, kind of that step ahead of me being lauded as the first woman to do this and the first woman to do that, and increasingly it feels like it is a changing situation. We have more theatres run by women, but still Advance really kind of kick-started you into rethinking through all the questions, and also thinking about them, in all the various different guises that they could have, rather than just who's the artistic director, or who's the creative team, how many women are there on stage, how does the representation change when you look at each area of the industry. And I don't think there's much opportunity to really think about it and really talk about it in an environment where it's okay to say something and then think, oh wait a minute, I didn't mean to say that at all, that was totally wrong. But really, because it's a really difficult question, and there were lots of knotty kind of discussions to be had, and it was really interesting to have the time dedicated to doing that, which normally you just don't.
And it's also nice not to be on a panel of women or a group of women talking about women in theatre, so that you've got, and also what was fascinating to me was the different approaches of different theatres, of different people in theatres, but also the change in terms of the size of the theatre, or the size of the production, and how women are represented or underrepresented or overrepresented in different sections of the kind of theatre community. And I thought that was fascinating, when you kind of, because it's not theatre, it isn't kind of one homogenous thing. It's small and it's large, and it's production and it's presentation, and it's all of these things. So I thought I really enjoyed kind of working with people who I wouldn't necessarily work with, like smaller scale theatres and some massive theatres, and all kind of with their own similar but slightly different things that they wanted to discuss. So I thought that was. I think my big thing was you actually stopping me from doing that thing which I always done, which I've told you before, which is, you think there's a problem, you think there's something that needs investigating, and I rushed to find the solution. So, is touring more difficult for women than it is for men? I don't know, but actually this would help. And I rushed to kind of this would help before really properly asking the question. So for me, that kind of, oh, hang on a second, and you going out and asking, actually asking women what it was like to be on tour, I think just opened up that real sense of, oh, actually, yes, this might be part of the solution, but this thing might look very different now that we've done the research. So for me, it was great to be part of a bigger project that had a longer time frame, that could really make us do things that we wouldn't necessarily find time to do. And to stop me kind of rushing forward thinking that I knew the answer, when actually the answer maybe not over there, but maybe kind of over there. So I don't know.
I think a lot of the statistical work that we did was really, really interesting for me, because it's something that anecdotally X is the case, women are underrepresented as designers or light designers or sound designers, But until you go, oh, actually only 10% of women were lighting designers, or 10% of the lighting designers this group of theatres worked with were women. And when you've got those facts, that can, you know, cut through a lot of discussion and really pull you up short. And the other thing which was interesting was drawing together, you know, ideas of ways of thinking that don't necessarily come from this country. We had a checklist that you discovered, the equality diversity checklist, which I think came from Sweden, and that was something that, you know, it's fairly obvious to have a checklist, you know, that's not kind of groundbreaking, but just seeing it and thinking, well, why don't we do it then, you know? And also, you know, let's be honest, having a template that you can work from, and you know, rather than starting with a blank sheet of paper, and that I think was something that quite a lot of the companies who were involved honed in on as being something that we could use and that could become an industry tool, quite widely used, quite easily.
It was really interesting for me because when you think as a woman running a company and making decisions about the people that you work with and the productions that we do, that we as a group of women, I had certainly never thought about how many women do we employ as writers, directors, choreographers, designers, etc., etc. And when it came to kind of looking at the wall of you know, the poster wall of everything that we've produced in the last kind of, I don't know, 6 to 8 years, and yeah, just actually realising that, I mean, I suppose intuitively you respond to you know, I think it's that thing of, if you always do what you've always done, then you always get what you've always got. And I think for us it's made me, and I think us think, oh, actually we've got a predominantly male production team here, is this going to be, you know, if we go down this road, what will that combination of people look like? Or if we make this decision about this production, what will that body of work look like? And what was fascinating is that there were people who were thinking about that way before, you know, I suddenly got around to thinking about it. So it you know, it highlighted that for me. And I think, you know, I'm as complacent as the next person. That was what was kind of fascinating, and it's not good enough to sit there as a woman saying, oh yeah, we have some great female directors. We do. We have worked with some fantastic writers and directors and designers. But actually, when you sit down and think, well, how many women have we employed? What does the balance of the work look like?
It was also interesting when, you know, when at the point at which the group started to kind of kick back, and you would somebody would identify an assumption, shall we say, about the way women work, and it was interesting to note the point at which somebody went, oh well, come on, we can't have an assumption about the way women work and that they are bad at this, you know, or they are good at, you know, or that we need to change some kind of system. You know, the moment that people, the kind of you know, I guess the reaction came back as going, okay, well, let's think about this as individuals rather than just, you know, kind of some, you know, perceived battle of the sexes.
Yes. Yes. Not generalising, kind of not putting women into that box and say women behave like that and they, you know, and they come packaged in this way, because actually that's incredibly offensive and inaccurate. And I think that even the women in the room were inclined to think that you could kind of, or understanding of those preconceptions about, you know, women being one thing or the other. So yeah, it kind of enlightening and great to listen to men talking about those assumptions. And I think one of the advanced meetings that I really enjoyed was that point where we all sort of said, well, started to challenge each other a bit, and that moment when I kind of said, well, what are we going to do about it? If we've done this research and we know how we feel about it, what are we going to do about it? And is it enough, or is it enough just to know and do nothing about it? Or are you actually going to make some changes? And if we're going to make some changes, how do we bring those about, and why?
The speakers were fantastic, were really fascinating. I think partly because it was very easy to talk in the abstract about trends and about numbers and about you know, plans and ambitions, but then actually to talk to people and also to really kind of bring alive, for want of a better word, those experiences, you know, that we were talking about, but then to hear Kate Moss talk about the experiences and the kind of backlash, for want of a better word, she'd had when she set up the prize, and the, you know, the number of people who said, oh, but surely this is offensive and patronising, why can't women enter the normal prize, you know, runnings, etc., etc., and to talk to hear Moira talking about the actual experience of having a show of hers put on while she had very young children, you know, that really brought alive and, you know, kind of contextualised and made you realise, you know, the kind of the resilience, you know, kind of, we don't need to, of course we don't need to patronise women, but you know, to actually hear those experiences was really fascinating and, you know, kind of, you know, gobsmacking really.
Well, for us, I think there's the kind of soft outcomes, which are absolutely, you know, we have had conversations about the gender makeup of the work that we're producing, both, you know, creatively, principally. So that's a kind of soft outcome, in that we are looking at creative teams and seeing what the gender balance is. Then there's the kind of harder outcomes, which is the online kind of digs booking service which we're working on, and how we can improve that, which is an idea that we already had pre-advance, but we have managed to kind of hone it down, and how we make that more useful. And we've made changes already. I mean, there have been very, very real outcomes.
Yeah, we were, I suppose, lucky in the thing that we chose to focus on was quite a tangible thing that we could just get on and do. We weren't kind of aiming to change the balance of, you know, in some kind of very long term and more kind of abstract way, I suppose. We set ourselves a task and we are doing it. I would love to see Advance continue, either for the existing members of the group or with I think the number of companies was perfect.
Yeah. And the range as well.
Yeah.
Small to very, very big.
So I'd slightly, much as I'd love to do it all over again, I think that would be a waste, and I think that if, as long as the kind of format and the people who ran it, you know, Tonic, were still present, I think that the people who've done it, you know, probably have had that exposure to step aside, and somebody, you know, another 10 or 12 companies should do it. But I think it really, you know, it has certainly influenced the way we've been thinking, not only about our, you know, core work and, you know, the balance of our creative teams, as Rich was saying, but also, you know, we are thinking about what other opportunities we can create for young female lighting designers, you know, that if that was successful next year, it might be sound designers, you know. I think it has kind of seeped into a lot of what we do, which is great.
Yeah, and really unexpected. Because who would have thought that a company that's almost exclusively staffed by women would actually be looking at itself and saying, oh, actually, we're not exactly a shiny example of employers. I mean, we employ lots of women in the production department, but that doesn't mean to say that, which isn't a conscious choice. I mean, some people think that it's a women's theatre company, it absolutely isn't. So yeah, I think it's very unexpected. For me, it's been quite enlightening, and just made me look at what we're doing, because it's great to see other people actually doing it better than you, and learning from their example and going, oh God, why didn't we think of that? Or, you know, that's what we should be doing, and we haven't been. So there's all those kind of gentle, soft impacts that you get from sitting in a group of people talking about one particular subject, and I've been incredibly impressed by some of the people out there. I mean, I you know, specifically the Gate, I've just gone, oh my God, actually this is brilliant, what you're doing is really fantastic. You know, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we thinking about that? Why aren't we letting, and now it's kind of like we're able to bring all those influences and all those other good examples of good practice, and then sort through them and think about which ones work for us and what we might be able to steal from other people.
And we kind of ended the Advance process with a slight kind of a feeling that the group experience, was very beneficial, in that it kind of gave us you know, the support to kind of say to a director, you know, you might want 3 male members of a creative team, but actually we are, you know, we are part of this thing, we have made this kind of official commitment, and, you know, holds you to account a bit, to, you know, so that you don't go back to the other 10 members of the group in 12 months' time and say, oh, nothing's changed, you know, that would be really embarrassing apart from anything else. So there's, and hopefully that is something that can filter out from beyond the kind of 11 core companies.
And I think allowing those experience that we've had of Advance to influence our choices going forward, it kind of adds a legitimacy to those questions that we can ask ourselves, and not being afraid to ask them, or thinking that we're, you know, doing something that's outside of the norm to be asking those questions, and going, actually, yeah, because if this organisation is asking those questions, then we should be asking them too, and maybe we'll find a different solution. But I think that's been really fascinating for us.